world tragedy. In my last creative writing, let's see. It was written at some point in early March. A side note regarding this recording. This story of mine was inspired by the bone-deep fear that chilled my soul to its very core when I first came across the Wikipedia entry detailing the real-world tragedy of the mid-Atlantic crash of Air France Flight 447 that went down en route from Rio to Paris on June 1st, 2009, killing all 228 passengers and crew members aboard. The info on the Wikipedia page has been contributed to significantly from when I first came across it, and now includes so much information and technical detail that it detracts almost all of the initial horror that it instilled closer to when the page was first created, which is, as a friend of mine once said to me, or phrased, quote unquote, good, bad, and sad. On a related note, however, it was the first time reading about the crash that caused me almost immediately to adopt an absurd fear of flying, to the point where I didn't, and possibly still don't, foresee myself ever boarding a plane again. Definitely not traveling over water anyway. Though I've been fine with flying, throughout my entire life. I mean, over ocean, over land. I've never had any fear of it whatsoever, but the thought of crossing the ocean on a plane after reading that initial Wikipedia entry, oh my god. Whoa. Anyway. So here's the story that was inspired from that first, the initial kind of Wikipedia posting. I recently read, the posting again, and it's filled with, 10 times as more, information as, the last time, when I had written that side note. It doesn't even, it doesn't even, you can't even kind of tell what happened. It just has so much information. It entirely detracts from, the tragedy that actually occurred, which is, again, good, bad, and sad, I guess. Anyway, so here's the story that was inspired by it. He puts on a yellow polo shirt, khakis, and a pair of loafers, studies the hotel room before leaving it, suitcases in tow. He ignores the bellhop's offer of assistance and proceeds to the car, stows his luggage, and straps on his seatbelt. He exits the hotel parking lot and heads to the Miami International Airport. Within an hour or so, he arrives, checks in, and maneuvers his way to the international gate. The plane was bound for an island off the coast of Africa with a layover in Brazil. The layover had irked him, but he had been placated by his desire for the brilliant Brazilian women who boarded the flight, some of whom had joined him up in the first-class cabin. Beautiful specimens. He knew the route the plane was taking. After a couple of whiskeys, he laid his head back and slept. He knew they were flying over the Atlantic Ocean and would be miles away from any point of land for at least 4 more hours. He shuddered as the thought gave him a small fright. Then everything went black and turbulence hit the plane hard. Suddenly, there were storm clouds all around them, and lightning struck as thunder clapped all of the passengers into states of pure fear. The oxygen masks dropped down, and he put his on hurriedly, hyperventilating. He felt his stomach rise as the plane dropped suddenly in altitude. There were some broken words coming from the plane speakers, but the captain's words were near unintelligible. The man started to pray to a God he hadn't thought existed as they dropped again in altitude and heavy rain beat on the plane, visible through the windows. He took out his flotation device and positioned it around his neck in preparation. He did not inflate the device quite yet, though others around him had, in a premature evacuation effort. They were in the middle of the ocean, and if they went down and managed to live through the crash, it would be ages before help could arrive. survivors' bodies floating with the strong ocean currents. The man grabbed for his 1-liter water bottle he'd purchased at the airport in some sudden nod toward self-preservation. The plane continued to drop, plunging quickly toward the dark waters of the stormy sea. Eventually, the moment of impact hit, and screams were heard. The stewards were trying in vain to evacuate the passengers through the emergency exits. Water quickly began filling the cabin. It came in at a frightening speed. The passengers who had already engaged the flotation devices were pulled up within the interior of the plane, unable to fight their way down into the ocean water that rapidly filled the aircraft cabin and through to the emergency exit door, their bodies rising within the plane and toward its ceiling, something akin to floating wine bottle corks. Luckily, the man was able to locate an exit and free himself from the wreckage, swimming to the water's surface before inflating his orange life vest. He still had his water bottle. He went into a shock of some sort and didn't wake up again until the sky had darkened and the ocean's mysterious and unknown currents had carried him so far from the crash site that estimation of how far off course and away made any hope of sighting by search and rescue crews but a pipe dream. With no help coming, the likelihood of surviving the dark and perilous vast depths of this particular ocean basically nil and no more. With no land for an indeterminate number of miles, he knew he was dead already. And so he stared around, swimming in a small circle at the horizon where sky met water. With visibility at night atop the ocean's swelling pull and tug, limited as it was, the water's deep depths below, a dark and inky black sky, he found himself trembling uncontrollably as he imagined sharks circling his body. The possibility of a 70-some-foot rogue wave forming without warning and smashing over him, parentheses, a most undesirable way to drown if ever there was one, close parentheses. The likelihood of his sense of self and sanity taking leave, becoming effects of unavoidable dehydration that would take not only his life, but his sanity as well. He considered tossing the life preserver and forcing the air from his lungs and inducing a premature drowning that would leave him with an ill-considered sense of some type of control, but couldn't summon the courage. Night eventually turned to day, and day back to night again. His thoughts, his ability to perceive, began to course toward erratic, and the man finally permitted himself to think the unthinkable, the fear he tried and failed to keep at bay. He really would die out here, an awful, depressing, helpless death. He could only hope his soul would eventually find peace.